Alright, hi guys. Today I'm gonna be doing a hair tutorial, obviously. And here I have 6 copy-pasted heads. Top ones are going to be the quote-unquote do's, and bottom ones are gonna be the quote-unquote don't. But of course, everybody has a different style that they prefer to draw in at that time. So, nothing's set in stone, I guess. But there's some obvious ones that you might want to avoid, especially if you're just starting out. So, first things first, I want to start off by saying that to achieve flowy, hairlistic hair, um, you need to keep in mind that cartoonism, the stylized, simplified version of reality, is just that. So everything is based off of reality, clearly. It is a person's face, except simplified and exaggerated. And so you want the hair to also be like that, you know? It needs to match your set style. And here I have a lot of thin lines, so we're gonna start off with line thickness, and you want the same line thickness that you've been using for the whole entire picture. You know, don't make it bigger or smaller. You wanna keep it consistent. And remember that hair is a bunch of different strands, and drawing each one of those strands, even when you're drawing realism, can just look ridiculous. It's like drawing every single pore, you know. People can't see those individual strands, so why would you draw them? You just want it to convey um, or give something that people will read as individual strands of hair. And how I do that is I draw my thin lines, and we're just going to do simple straight hair. And I really use that pen pressure sensitivity to my advantage. Maybe just at some points just barely touch the tablet and really make those thin strands. And next to it, I'll just draw another one, and they don't necessarily have to connect. And then it's also okay if they just overlap a little bit as well, because it is several strands. And just sort of getting the feel of the nature of hair with these very soft lines, and you know, not connecting them like this, like little triangle cutouts. You'll be connecting them like this in my version of hair. Um, that way it looks a lot softer and nicer, and just creating these little strands that are right next to each other, that is following the direction of the hair, which you can clearly see is going down and out. Uh, it reads that there are there are several different strands. Um, so that is the first thing I want to point out. The second thing is deciding what you want your hair to look like, which is what we'll do right here. So obviously you want your basic shapes. In this picture, I have this oval shape right here, and then I got this bang shape. It sort of overlaps all of that, and it's all simplified. And then this is quite square down here. So we're going to, if you have trouble deciding the direction you want to go with your hair, this might help creating those simplified shapes. Say we want to do bangs, and as we know, bangs are going to stretch across the forehead, the face, um, which I have a lot of, the eyebrows are quite high on this, so I'm gonna have it cover up the eyebrows. If I don't have it cover up the eyebrows, it's just gonna be the awkward short that cut my bangs too short look, which I mean is honestly, that's a style too. And that is something you can do with your drawings. It can look pretty cute. Short, they're really short bangs. But anyway, we're just gonna go more traditional route though. So we're gonna go with this sort of bowl shape on the head, and it's like a half circle. And if you imagine the head as a sphere, a lot of the times, if I can get a circle, if I know how to draw a circle, that'd be great. Good enough. Um, you obviously know to imagine it as a 3D shape. So you won't just draw your lines like that, and that's not how you're gonna draw your bangs. You're not just gonna draw it straight across, you know. You're going to follow the shape of the head. So the shape of the head is a 3D round spherical object. So you'll be showing that with the bangs. And the second basic shape, just a triangle. Super, super easy. And now that you got a basic shape of what you want to do, you can start adding the details and make it look like hair and not just a chunky piece of poop. So our starting point is obviously, we'll make it in the middle. Um, and we're going to have directional pieces coming from that starting point first off. Now, make sure you don't just have a bunch of pieces just randomly coming off from that starting point. I feel like it could look good in some situations, but the reason we're not doing it here is because too many strands in such a blocky hairstyle that I am doing here can really, it just doesn't match, it doesn't go together, you know. Just like if it's a more flowy, messy hairstyle, drawing tons of strands, probably wouldn't be so bad. It's like when you see somebody with straight hair, a lot of the times their hair looks very well kept and there isn't so many flyaways. But if you see somebody with curly, frizzy hair, you will see many defined strands of hair. So, but since this is straight hair, we're gonna stick with fewer strands. And if we want, we can add a little bit of these triangles that I'm sure you've seen in the straight bang look. I think a good example is My Little Pony. I'll end that there though. Won't talk about that anymore. So now from here, let's add a little bit more detail over here. From here, I feel like I've got some good details on the bangs, and we're just going to start drawing framing pieces. Now these are optional. You can obviously like have the hair tucked behind the head like this, but either way, there probably should be something going on here. If you just have the hair going straight down like that, um, it's not giving it as much dimension. It makes it look like the hair is just strictly too tight on the head, you know. So you can make it go back behind the ear, and maybe have a little bit of strands just sort of falling down from behind the ear. And let's give it some dimension by adding adding a little piece over here, turning this basic shape into something a bit more detailed, because cartoon the cartoon style is simplified, but not that simplified. So we're just cutting out a little chunk there and making our little triangles just so we can be consistent with the the bangs or fringe. And now I'm just going to draw in those little strands. Now this is optional. Sometimes what I like to do is sorry about that. I thought I heard something. I like to create little strands of hair just to give it a little bit more man, what's the word? Dimension, I guess. Um, but this is very well kept hair, so we're not gonna do too much of that. I can show here an example, just little wisps of hair that are not really in uniform with anything else. Just straying out from the side mostly. Makes it look a little bit more like it's been blowing in the wind. That is, of course, optional. We're gonna leave that out. Next is drying hair with no bangs. I know a lot of people have trouble with that. So first off, we gotta decide where's the hairline. You don't really have to worry about that if you draw bangs. But in this case, it's pretty important. If you have it too high up, they're gonna be balding. If you have it too low down, okay. It's a little bit Neanderthal like, or it just looks like they have bangs. So you want to find that middle ground. And with this kind of face, an unrealistic face, with a realistic face, it's a little bit easier to measure. That's why I really encourage people to draw from realism before you start doing cartoons. And I feel like it's a misconception for a lot of beginner artists to just draw in a simplified cartoon version instead of, and then leaving the realistic stuff to the professionals. Just get a reference of a real life picture and just draw from that. And it doesn't even have to be good. Just getting those kind of habits instead of drawing anime, which that's it's a very popular style for beginners. It's very simple, um, which can lead to habits of making the eyes way too big on a realistic face. If you want to eventually move to realism, it's a lot harder to get used to. Whereas with realism, you learn how to draw that, and then you can exaggerate features all you want after that. You know, you get the basics down, get reality down, and then you can just exaggerate the hell out of everything. So anyway, um, that was kind of a rant, but with the hairline, I eyeball it. I with the cartoon drawings, it's a lot of eyeballing for me. There's no actual measurements because nothing is correct. Like eyebrows don't go this high on the face. Um, she's clearly like raising her eyebrows, and the eyes are taking up so much space. Um, Normally, I would probably put like about an inch from the top of the head if you're looking at the head straight on, and I would put the hairline about there. So we're just going to eyeball it and see what feels right. I think another thing that may help is creating that Mickey Mouse shape first. So if you've ever seen a man who is balding, perhaps, um, he'll have this like M shape on the top of their head, and then it goes out down like this. It is a 3/4 view, so this part of it will be hidden over here. And so now we can really tell where we want the hair to go. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this so you can leave it in. Because I can pretty much imagine it in my head. I guess I should leave it in there though, right? I just don't want it to get too messy, get in the way. Anyway, so we're gonna start from that middle piece and we're just going to create a V shape from there. And when we get over here, we're gonna start overlapping it, like imagining the hair strands just coming down to the back of the head. Ponytail is gonna be about here. Maybe collecting here. All the hair is gonna be collecting in that one point. So just making big chunks just to know where the direction of the hair is going. Here's another point right here. So we'll draw a little bit of V there and a little V there. So we got 1, 2, 3 V's. And then from there you can start just trying to connect them. But a lot of the times when you're drawing realism, a lot of people like to blend in the skin with the hair. So it doesn't look like the hair is just overlapping the skin like a bad wig. If you know what a bad wig looks like, then you obviously don't want your drawings to look like they're wearing a wig. You want these strands of hair to blend into the skin. So I'm just gonna erase this here because it's a little bit too messy for me to draw on top of and show you guys clearly. So drawing them lightly and not connecting them so much can help them really blend in. It's like if you have a hard line here and then just make it softer and even like just little dots. If you ever seen it look like it's clearly, you know, blending into the skin there. If you ever seen dot art, they have the same transparency. They just make the dots smaller, and it appears as if it's blending. So we're gonna make that V on the head again, and then we're gonna go out but not connect these. Gotta get rid of this one because it's a little too far off. Ponytail still collecting at about here. Get rid of that. Okay, now we're gonna lift it slightly off the head. So we're just gonna take a couple of strands. And then go ahead and create that ponytail. Make it look as if it's like a bun on top. I bet a short little ponytail. And I don't really care about what the bottom looks like, so I'm not going to try to spend too much time on that. And then we'll just sort of create the hairline here. Clean it up a bit. And so it doesn't look like the hair is just sparse there. We're just going to make very small lines in between all of those thicker lines. Then, of course, coloring it, I think, is what really brings it together and makes it look so, not so much like it's a sparse hair, obviously, coloring it, which I will probably show how I would do that too, just because it's a little bit weird coloring something with no border, no lines to surround it. Which I'll go ahead and do now, because I'm about to the part of the don't side. Go ahead and block in the ponytail here. This side is pretty easy to see here. This side, just block it in at that. Okay, and when you get to these, shrink your brush and just make the same motions that you were making when you created them in the first place, and following those lines. Same exact motions. And here it looks like there needs to be a bit more hair, so I won't worry about making the lines so much. I'll just draw in the hair, color in the hair. And if I feel like I need to create those lines, I can obviously do that too, just because I feel like it would look a little bit better if it was more defined right there. Alright, and there's a bunch of lines, just a bunch of messy lines that you would probably want to keep clean. Just sort of clean it up a little bit. And that is basically what I do for little ponytails. Next up is the don't. Okay. So this is just things that I see a lot of beginner artists do, or just habits that I see a lot of people do. When a lot of I feel like everybody loves drawing that wavy, messy, crazy look because you feel like, it's a little bit more free, airy and fluffy, and everybody likes that. The issue I have with it is people don't use pen pressure sensitivity and the light fast strokes, and they make it all one connected one line. And I'll show you an example of the line that I would do, just something like that, and the line that I see people do. See what I mean? And it doesn't look that bad, but when you start making the whole head with that shape, obviously over exaggerated a little bit over here, it just you it looks like you took a piece of paper and you just started cutting out the basic shape. It looks like the very basic form of hair. Like you're just planning it out. You're just planning on the shape of the hair, like we did with this top middle one right here. We made the bowl shape in the what do you call that, rectangle shape, and it looks unfinished and underdeveloped. Um, so when you do wavy hair like that, we'll just make one piece. I feel like people do it because they maybe are a bit too scared to just create exaggerating big flowy lines, or maybe because they're drawing with the mouse. And if you're drawing with a mouse and this is like all you can do, I would suggest downloading Paint Tool Sci, since they have the function to not only stabilize your lines, but they also have a pen, which you can just sort of, unlike Photoshop, it doesn't matter how fast you go, you're not going to get that tapered off end. But in Sci, I believe there is a pen that sort of automatically tapers off. And if you still can't do that, taper it off yourself. So you got a thick bold line here, and just sort of take your eraser and just taper it off. It probably takes a lot more time, but in the end you'll get better artwork. So anyway, with this, it looks like a big piece of Play-Doh, and to be fair, I have seen people draw in a style where they have that Play-Doh look, but it's okay because it matches the whole style. The very okay, let's do an example here. See, this has minor details, very minor, and then maybe they'll they'll draw their hair like just like Princess Bubblegum from Adventure Time. And it doesn't look that bad. And it doesn't look that bad because it matches the whole thing. There is consistency, and it's still interesting shapes. This is certainly not an interesting shape. Um, it's just you're attempting to draw layers and strands, and it doesn't look like that. It makes it look a lot flatter when you just draw on a like the layers in such a two-dimensional way. And so you say, okay, well then I'll add them in the middle of the hair too. Makes it look like it's a part of the whole head. Well, now, I mean, what is that? It just looks like maybe that part of the hair is being lifted up from the rest of the hair. Then you say, okay, well, I'll do this method or this method and just draw little lines in the middle. Then it just doesn't match. You're making these little lines in the middle, but the rest of the hair isn't like that. It's just inconsistent. If you're going to draw lines like this, every line has to be as soft and sparse as that. Um, Next issue is that I see a lot is just people drawing layered straight hair. So this is an issue I had. When I would draw hair, I would want there to be layers because I want it to be interesting, obviously. And then sometimes at the bottom, it would kind of get a little hard. I wouldn't know what to do with that. And then the bangs, I would want them to be like tapered off and look like they're layering, and it ends up looking like this. which doesn't look like hair. It's not even the simplified version of, of hair. It's not hair. I don't know what it is, but it's not hair. Um, and the biggest tip I can give you is to, with the ends like this, you don't want these big triangles. Avoid triangles. Avoid these clunky, nasty triangles. If you're gonna make a triangle like that, if you want to show off layers, add some interesting details. Add some curvature. Make them thinner at least. Like, even this is bad. You can see I made it thinner, I made it wispier, but it's so far from the hair that it looks like maybe there's a piece of hair that's just being pulled. And I mean, what would it be pulled by? The wind is pulling a single strand of hair. So it needs to follow suit with the rest of the hair. You know, you can't have one just lifting up in a completely different direction. When this is going that way, you don't want one lifting up and going that way. Unless it's maybe being held up by gel or something. It's not my favorite thing, and I know a lot of people who are even probably better than me probably do that, and it's just I don't like it. Um, so this is a little bit subjective, but it's just what I've learned throughout the years. What works for me and what works for other people will be incredibly different. And if you like the way that something looks and you think it looks good with your drawing, I mean, I wouldn't say, oh, just leave it and continue on and just do that. I wouldn't do that. I would get criticism, and I would try out new things, and I would just keep on trying new things and see if there's something that maybe is even better. You know, like when I was first drawing hair, I did do this a lot. I would draw hair and I would just do this. And I was like, oh well, I don't think it looks that bad. I think it looks kind of nice and wavy. But but then I realized that even though this may not look that bad, it's I found something better that suits me more. And I think everybody needs to experiment and really find something that suits you more. And I just prefer not connecting all these lines. And when I color, I let my coloring do all the work when it comes to the ends of the hair wisping out. Um, and I don't let my lines be completely framing the whole entire hair, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna get this look back. And if you're having trouble with the ends of the hair, say you just want it to be straight, you could either do like I did in this example here, which it's a lot more simplified than this, and more consistent than this, and a lot more interesting than this. So, but we're gonna do it a different way. Say we want it to come off in maybe like a triangular way. You know, we'll have that point, and then we'll just bring it up to the other side of the hair. And since this is so far away from this line here is far away from this line here, I can just connect them with another strand and make it a little bit more interesting and have that strand like have this maybe strand just being a little bit straighter or something, you know. Or say I want this straight more um, non-tapered off, and but I don't want something square and bulky like this. I would suggest round shapes like this. we'll have this little head framing piece, face framing piece. There we go. Go home all the way down, and say this is the back of the head, back of the hair. This is sides and front. And you can have this roundish sort of shape to it. It's a little bit more interesting. It gives it a little bit more of a bouncy feel. So that brings me to another tip. Drying. Forgot what it was. Oh yeah, drying hair in certain positions on the head. No, like drying hair way too far from the head, or drying it too close on the head. When you're drying hair, you want to make sure the head you're working with is good, is um uh well off for you to draw with. You know, with this, I followed the shape of the forehead in order to make this bang. And if the shape of the forehead was, say, a little bit more flat, I would probably make the bang more flat. You know what I mean? And so it helps a lot to have just a good base to draw on. And if you just decide to just draw the hair before you draw the head, then the head is going to look entirely too large or too small. So just make sure you got a good foundation. That's always important. Even when you are just going in at it and not even worrying about the shape that you want for your head, not worrying about a starting point, and you're just going in for it. And you gotta make sure that every line you draw is a line that you want and you need in order to make the whole entire hair. Because you will need every single strand, because the way I do it, at least, one line for the hair leads into the other, which leads into all the others and creates the whole entire hair. Um, so just make sure that you are making every line count, basically. And that's why Control Z or your undo button, whatever that's bind it to, is just right on the tip of your finger, and you are ready to press it whenever you possibly can. And just constantly press it. And this goes for no matter what you're drawing. Just make sure you're pressing the shit out of that. You want every line to be fucking perfect. You want every line to mean something, to do something for your drawing. Because every line does count. Every single line. Every line gives you information and gives everybody else information about the piece. And here I was just sort of showing how I do really wavy, curly hair. I sort of tuck the hair in on itself as if it's going in this very tight S shape. And so instead of just drawing hair like that, I will draw it like little C shapes. Just gives it a nice little wavy look, and that's probably where I'm gonna end this. I feel like it's gone on for quite some time, so I hope this helped, and I might be back with a different tutorial, maybe. We'll see.